Come, let us consider Buddhist and Taoist philosophy to help us meditate like a Jedi. Let us begin with the Four Noble Truths. From an evolutionary perspective, let's try this way. From a certain point of view, from a certain point of view, stress is anything that circumstantially, physically, interpersonally, or mentally inhibits our ability to survive and thrive as a species. We evolved a collection of instincts to help to survive these stressors. These are fine when used sparingly, but since the Neolithic Revolution, we as a species have been forced to overuse them. Enslaved by the fleeting short-term pleasures of our dopamine-oriented reward system, we have become defined by our controlling tendencies, and as such, overfocus, overanalyze, and overbelieve to such a degree that we exhaust our dorsolateral and medial prefrontal cortex, which triggers our amygdala, the seat of anxiety and aggression, causing our tendencies to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, to be the guiding light by which we needlessly squander our brief human lives. The fulfillment for which we yearn could only be delivered by our oxytocin-oriented system that rewards our tendencies to be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. This meaningful path has 8 folds. Let us forsake the exhausting habit of actively fighting against our own autonomic nervous system, the hardware of our Buddha nature, and instead with it cooperate. By silently and mentally reciting the verb watch each time we feel our chest subtly swell as we inhale, and by silently and mentally reciting the verb rest each time we feel air exit our nostrils. Each time we feel our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale. Let's do a quick edit because ostensibly that's how I roll. Okay, let's go over here. Let's hit 28, and there we go. Please bear with me. There's no edit like one that occurs spontaneously. That's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Having explored the Four Noble Truths, before we hit the Eightfold Path, let's switch gears for just a moment or two. It is General Leia Organa Saturday morning. Come, let us meditate like a Jedi after about 30 seconds of housekeeping. This is the Dzogchen Sende Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For more than 30 years, I've harnessed my autistic special interests as well as my ADHD hyperfocus to spend about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that I can become your personal nerdy, neurodivergent guide to nirvana. Welcome, my friends, to meditate like a Jedi. Which is made possible due to the generosity of viewers just like you. Now let us explore the Eightfold Path. During each inhalation, spontaneous and uncontrived, the sympathetic nervous system centered in the middle bit of our spinal cord is already wired to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly watch our perceptions. The sights, sounds, sensations, flavors, and scents of the 4 bases of mindfulness, the circumstantial, physical, interpersonal, and mental, including our abilities to emote, intend, reason, recall, and imagine. Instead of indulging our controlling tendencies to shove at circumstantial danger, physical pain, interpersonal scorn, and mental shame, as well as reach for circumstantial safety, physical bliss, interpersonal praise, and mental fame, let us choose to be vulnerable to all that we experience, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the glorious to the grotesque. But what are we to do with all that what are we to do with all that we watch? This is the eightfold of the Buddha's path. Simple, with every exhalation, the top bit and the bottom bit of that same spinal cord, known as our parasympathetic nervous system, is already wired to rest in such a manner that which we noticed during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and even as non-graspable as a vast empty void, like the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which, although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand. Until, of course, the next inhalation, when the cycle begins afresh, and like the ticking pendulum of a grandfather clock, we continue to watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature. The acquisition of a new skill could make us anxious, and even feel that we, like Rip Van Winkle, could sit to meditate only to open our eyes and find that a century has passed us by. Some have found that the best way to non-neurotically time our meditation is to practice a variation of Bengali crease counting. It could take more than 1 minute to count 16 inhalations by touching the tip of our right thumb to the creases and tips of its little one, ring, middle, and index fingers. It could take more than 20 minutes to count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each by touching the tip of our left thumb to the creases and tips of its little, ring, middle, and index fingers. It could take more than an hour to count 16 sets of 16 inhalations each Thank you for your patience. It could take more than an hour to count 3 collections of 16 sets of 16 inhalations each by using the tip, see, of our left middle finger to first support our right middle finger's larger lower knuckle, then support its middle knuckle, and then support its very small upper knuckle, all while resting both hands palms up in our lap. Remember, that which at first feels awkward could be mastered if practiced once every 12 hours after only a week or so. Now, let us explore the remaining 6 folds of the Buddha's Eightfold Path that are the effortless byproducts of simply playing with mindfulness and meditation. As we sit and breathe and watch and rest, all that we notice could fleetingly and effortlessly come to feel impermanent, evanescent, and far too subject to change to ever be permanently grasped. This is the first fold of the Buddha's Eightfold Path. We're now going to explore in rapid fire the 2nd through 5th folds. The more we sit and breathe and watch and rest, the more our anxious and aggressive amygdala is calmed. And the more our empathetic anterior cingulate gyrus is gently stimulated, so marinating our experience of the 4 bases of mindfulness. That mentally our intentions are spontaneously kinder, the 2nd fold. Interpersonally, our utterances are naturally kinder, the 3rd fold. Physically, our conduct is automatically kinder, the 4th fold. And circumstantially, our commerce is impulsively kinder, the 5th fold. Thus forging a heaven on earth, eventually a peaceful death, and even an auspicious rebirth, figuratively, if not literally. This brings us to the 6th fold. The more we watch mind's antics and rest in its non-graspable nature, the more we automatically experience the effortless effort, or wu-wei, that comes not from calculated contrivance nor from wild scatteredness, but instead from love's deeply centered spontaneity. Let us transcend our elitist conditioning to consider the possibility that enlightenment is merely mastery of this eightfold path. As children, the skills to use the toilet, brush our teeth, tie our shoes, and ride a bike felt insurmountable. And yet, with time and effort and tears, we so mastered these skills that we came to perform them spontaneously, habitually, easily, and effectively. Similarly, enlightenment's eightfold path could likewise be effortless. Perhaps that is why, that in the 2nd to final passage of his discourse on the 4 bases of mindfulness, the Buddha is said to have explained that one could master this path in as suddenly as 7 days. No, doing so does not mean we'll never experience any pain or craving ever again. It simply means we will have mastered. Okay, let's figure this. Had to add a word. No, doing so does not mean we'll never experience the presence of any pain or craving ever again. It simply means we will have mastered the Buddha's figurative tool chest with which we could sustainably respond to each with which we could sustainably transcend each sling and arrow of outrageous fortune. So, once every 12 hours or so, may we sit and breathe and watch and rest. So, I have blathered on for the better part of 15 minutes. Here's the upshot. We are already wired, our autonomic nervous system is already wired to watch mind's antics, and to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly. And we're already wired, it's already wired to rest and let go, at least temporarily. But because of a mishap in our evolution 10,000 years ago, we're stuck in competitive mode. And we want to compete against our autonomic nervous system. The easiest way to cooperate with it passively is just to silently and mentally recite the verb watch every time we feel our chest swell, and the verb rest every time we feel our chest subtly, gently sink. That's it. It's just that simple. The moment you have a specific question about Buddhist or Taoist philosophy or meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I tend to check for questions intermittently. Not everyone's body is equipped to sit for 60 minutes straight. That's fine. It's not a indictment. There's a workaround. Start off at 5 minutes, once every 12 hours, the first week. When you feel ready, you can bump that up to 10 minutes, once every 12 hours, the second week. On the third week, you can increase that by 5 minutes, progressing thusly within about 12 weeks, you could find yourself sitting for an hour. There's a lot of advantages to be had from cooperating with your body. 60 minutes is not a magic number. You can master the path in a week, regardless of how much time you spend sitting. Don't make the mistake of listening to rigid and controlling elitists who will tell you you must sit motionless for an hour in the full lotus position. That's a great way to get arthritis. Listen to your body, cooperate with it. The body is not a foe, it is a tool. I've been told I sometimes come across with the sincerity of a game show host. That is because I have autism and a shit ton of speech impediments. And that's the only way I know how to speak is quasi-musically. And there's that. Elitists do not love us. They love our attention, they love the power we give them, and they love our money. They will lie to us to break our spirits and make us simply their minions. They will move the Buddha's goalposts and tell us we have to be, the goal is to never feel pain or craving ever again. But that is not the Buddha's teaching. Nirvana is not the absence of pain or dread or desire. It's the freedom from the tyranny of those things. They're still there. They come and go like birds alighting on a branch and then flying away. Mastery of the path just means we're really, really good at noticing what's going on and processing what's going on. That's it. The Buddha still had misfortune after he was the Buddha. There were multiple assassination attempts made upon his person. And at one time, he was forsaken by the majority of his own students. So good fortune or bad fortune is neither an indictment nor an acquittal. It's just that which makes life ever so interesting. Let's talk about realistic expectations. Oh, good, there's a question. First, realistic expectations. In 1977, when Star Wars A New Hope was released, I was a 12-year-old little Jewish boy preparing for his bar mitzvah. So I hung on every word. Imagine my surprise as the years elapsed and the Star Wars universe expanded like the opening of an umbrella. And I learned that the term Darth was a title. And yet, in the 2/3 mark of Star Wars A New Hope, Obi-Wan Kenobi addresses Darth Vader as Darth, as if that was his first name, or his assumed first name. And so, yes, there are wonderful in-universe explanations and justifications for that. That smack of, what's it called? There's a fancy term in fiction when you fix something to make it more congruent with the canon. It'll occur to me later. But there's ways to justify and minimize and rationalize that, or we can just be honest and say, this is not reality, this is a very, very fun work of fiction, and at that point in the author's mind, Darth was a name, not a title. That changed over time. The childish or rigid and petulant, the mature or flexible and resilient. There are many fools who say the test of a teacher is they must teach the exact same thing that I've already learned. What a marvelous way to assume we never evolve beyond where we are at right now. The only way to climb a ladder is to do two things. With one hand, we must reach for the next rung, and with the other hand, we must relax the previous rung. When done skillfully, we can successfully ascend the ladder. Similarly, as we traverse the spiritual path, we will outgrow certain things that we were taught. We'll see that certain things we were taught were either error or false, or that they no longer serve us. As we children, we wore diapers. When we got to be a little bit older, we had bicycles with training wheels. As adults, we no longer rely on diapers or training wheels. If we did, then I think it's safe we would have taken that is because we took a wrong turn. Similarly, as we evolve on the spiritual path, there are things to reach for and things to release, just like climbing up a ladder. Can that be uncomfortable? Yes. Can we have forged or experienced sentimental attachments to previous teachings and previous teachers? Yes. And does that always serve us? No. Is that an indictment? No. That's how we evolved. Our job is not to try to never experience desire or dread or attachment or avarice. Our job is to recognize them and deal with them appropriately, gently, using the Buddha's toolbox. Now, let's see here. Morvai asked, yeah, and they love the fog, lacking transparency. Yep. But eventually, after dark days, the blue skies return with the sun. Yep. Look, I have no father. The sun is setting here in Europe. Well, enjoy the sunset, my friend. Watching a sunset is my favorite television show. many, many years ago, when I was studying to be a minister, my mentor said, "You you speak. When you speak, you sometimes your voice gets very, very high or very, very low, and you sound like a Jew." And the answer was, "Well, I am one." I was delighted to learn that's also a Tibetan custom. So, yes, there are whole segments of the human population that incorporate the entire, what's it called? Not spectrum of notes. There's a better word for it. But yeah, all the tones. Some feel that tone itself is an additional punctuation. There are many elitists who would tell their students that feeling painful emotions or painful memories or painful fantasies while meditating is an indictment. It is not. It just means the brain's doing what it has evolved to do. The very fact that we are noticing them is good. The very fact that we can relax during our exhalation despite them is great. Perhaps that is why the great Buddhist reformer Prahe Vajra, known in Tibet as Garab Dorje, explained that as we relax into our exhalation, whatever pleasure or pain we noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just emotion. Allow me to remind you that the test of a spiritual teaching is not how old it is or how popular it is or who claims to have been the author. The only test of a spiritual teaching or a spiritual technique is the effects it creates in our body and mind as we practice it once every 12 hours for as little as a week. If a technique makes us anxious and angry, it's probably not good. If it makes us peaceful and loving, it's probably good for us. It's just that simple. You can divide any tradition into two phases. Its proto phase and its institutional phase. In its proto phase, you probably have more pure teachings. And in this institutional phase, you have teachings that have been filtered through the lens of patriarchy. Which is great if you want to be just as rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel as them. But if you don't want to be that way, then seek out the original teachings, the proto-teachings, the teachings that help us to be flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind, and help us to do so effortlessly. The highest love is not the product of contrivance, but the spontaneous and uncontrived byproduct of simply watching and resting. In the Buddha's Eightfold Path, there is no mention of karma. There is no mention of hell. There is no mention of heaven. 50% of the Buddha's Eightfold Path pertained simply to love. It's an easy path. If the teachings we're exposed to don't make us effortlessly loving and resilient, then keep shopping. Thank you, Morvai. Consider, if you will, Zen. Proto-Zen and institutional Zen. Institutional Zen says, hey man, you can't become a Buddha without a teacher. However, Proto-Zen cites the actual writings of Bodhidharma, who says, here's the instructions for using a teacher, and here's the complete instructions for not using a teacher. So for Bodhidharma, a teacher was optional. And that's just one of many examples of the difference between a proto-spiritual path and an institutional spiritual path. The 14th Dalai Lama of Tibet, in his commentary to Essence of Refined Gold, expressed his opinion that one of the reasons why Buddhism died out in India so many centuries ago was because of abusive guru-disciple relationships. Who can forget the Great Sparrow or the Head Sparrow from Game of Thrones, who before he had any power came across as very charming and charismatic, but once he had power, he was a tyrant. That is not unique in the history of human affairs. Growing up neurodivergent, I had both parents and authority figures determined to beat the autism out of me. We can't do that any more than you can beat cancer out of me. Or out of one. Let us seal the practice by chanting the cuckoo's song of awareness. Or not chanting, but reciting. If you wish to recite with me, you're welcome to join me over here. One moment, if you please. Let us begin with the view. The true nature of infinite diversity is non-dual, for the wisdom of each phenomena is free of the need of conceptual elaboration. As we relax into our exhalation, whatever beauty or ugliness we might have noticed during our previous inhalation could feel as if it was melting into the simplicity of just a sight. Let's turn our attention now to meditation. The so-called state of just as it is inexpressible, for all manifested forms are ultimately self-perfected. No one has to concentrate, no one who is sober or healthy has to concentrate to walk upright. We have three sets of tubes in our inner ears to help us stand perfectly upright. And thus we do so automatically. Similarly, we have evolved an autonomic nervous system that watches and rests in such a way as to help us to effortlessly master the Buddha's path. Hence, self-perfected. And we conclude with action. As everything is already accomplished, by giving up the affliction of striving, one finds oneself naturally abiding in the effortless state. A litmus test of our practice of watching and resting every 12 hours or so is that our choices, utterances, and deeds begin to flow, not from contrived calculation and not from wild scatterness, but from a centered spontaneity. Love's highest expression. Whoops, wrong button. Here we go. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.